Hi guys, my name is Public Demon, and here today we've got Microsoft Flight Simulator, and I wanted to go over a couple things about this piece of software to help those who have been long-time flight simmers, or maybe those that aren't interested in all the assistance that Microsoft has enabled by default to give you a better flight experience. For those of you who've been around for a long time, a lot of these different things that Microsoft has tacked on to Microsoft Flight Simulator are more for the appeasement of, I think, the Xbox simmer, since it's available on both platforms. But for those of us on PC who are flying around on, VATSIM or IVO or POSCON, or just even if you're off network, just doing your own thing, some of these are very immersion breaking. And I wanted to show you guys how I have mine set up. And this is just more of a guide so that you can have an opportunity to maybe possibly set things up for yourself. So just full disclosure here, we're going to take a look at a lot of these settings, and they don't necessarily have to replicate what you have. The graphic settings don't really have anything to do with how it's going to look for you, but this is more of a trial and error aspect to see what works for you. These settings work for me, and they also replicate across when I have a different set of settings for VR. But first thing I want to look at is camera. Now, a lot of the options here, I either set to manual or toggle, and that's specifically because I don't want these things to be enabled right off the bat. So key thing here is camera selection from cockpit that I have set up so that's where I always start. Zoom function, I don't want it to automatically zoom while I'm looking around. I use either a combination of the VR or the I use a head tracker, Tobii head tracker. Tobii eye tracker, and I don't want this to be set for the sim to do it on its own. So wide angle works for me because I have a wide angle camera. Wide angle camera. I almost want to start this video over again. Wide angle monitor. For folks who have different preferences, you might choose to have it very close. I don't know why. If you want to do HUD only, maybe you're doing a home cockpit setup and that would be best for you. Landing, I don't really see a use in this, but for sure wide angle is what I typically use. So free look mode, again, toggle. Reset is on manual, head up mode on toggle. This is the thing that bugged me at first, and I think when Microsoft Flight Simulator first came out, there are some settings in here, not under cockpit camera, but under chase camera, that I think made it a lot easier for me. They've moved those settings, and I'll show you where they're at. But the camera shake, this is a preference item. I typically keep it off. Flashlight mode. So this is when it's dark and you're in the cockpit. Let's say you're cold and dark and you're on the ramp there, and you want to be able to see around. Before you turn your lights on, if you have this set to auto, it will automatically turn the flashlight on so that you can see what you're looking at. Once you start turning lights on, the flashlight will turn itself off. And home cockpit mode is kind of self-explanatory. Some of these other items, like I said, are just kind of for preference. Okay. On traffic, I prefer that show traffic nameplates are off. I believe when you first start Microsoft Flight Simulator and when you first install it, it will have this enabled. And so when you're online, whether you're using the online multiplayer component of MSFS or you go in VATSIM, a lot of times you'll start seeing their names over their heads. I don't, that's immersion breaking for me. Not my cup of tea, so I have that turned off. Let's take a look here. Yeah, that I leave that on modern. Now this area had more options in it than I realized that I needed to deal with. Okay, this is where a lot of the biggest pieces of immersion break from Flight Simulator when you're inside the cockpit. Okay, first thing off is the screen narrator. Sometimes this asks you when you first install if you want this on. Make sure it's off. This cockpit interaction system. So I have it currently set to lock. Now legacy, when you mouse over, it will not specifically highlight that component the way that it does with lock. With lock, the key thing here is that it will give you a tooltip of the description of the item that you're looking to click. So the menu, instrument name, and the description. The menu is self-explanatory. It's for the menu. The instrument name, if you mouse over a particular instrument, whether it's the HSI, whether it's the altimeter, whatever you may be looking at, it will tell you if you mouse over it for more than like a second, probably a little less. It will show you what that item is. Now, if you're new to flight simming and you want to get used to where things are around in the cockpit, this might work for you, but for me, I don't like seeing it, so I keep this off. Item instrument description tooltips. This is a lot where you click on a switch and it'll tell you what the switch is for. Again, if you're getting used to an aircraft, especially if you got something complex, you're not used to it before, I understand. But for those who us have been around for a while, this stays off. Menu animations, this is all kind of preference. Subtitles, definitely off. Skip pre-flight cinematics. When you go to set up your flight, and when you click fly, from the moment where you've picked the aircraft, runway, departure, whether you're on the ramp, and you're in your flight path, okay? The moment you click fly, you will have a pre-flight cinematic that will kind of show you the area, show you around on the ramp or the runway where you're at with your aircraft. It's really neat. I actually do like it. It's nice when I'm not ready to necessarily jump in the cockpit and get right away. Maybe I'm gonna go grab a drink before I sit down. So I like to look at it. It's kind of a neat feature. So those right there are gonna be your main items that are really gonna be key. I had a hard time figuring out this one here because it drove me crazy. Absolutely drove me crazy. So instrument name, menu tooltips, set this on lock. Okay, set these items off. It will save your life when you're looking at the screen. If you have these things set up and you want to use them, that's on you. It's entirely your choice. I personally don't like having them on. This is just binds for VR. If you have the data to handle it, I would highly suggest using a rolling cache, by the way. I know this is not necessarily a flight simmer specific immersion breaking thing. However, I will tell you that from a perspective of using it, if you want to have a better experience for areas, especially that you visit a lot, that's the way to go. If you got the space, add a rolling cache. You can set a limit on how much it'll use, and it will save, rather than downloading each time, it will save the images for the photo geometry that we don't have to reload it every single time. Okay, so key things here: in your global settings, manual or toggles, as many places as you can. This is more about preference here. Cockpit camera selection, heads-up mode toggle, camera shake off or on. It's more about preference. Flashlight mode, I leave that to auto. I like it. Instrument mode selection and view selection, manual and toggle. POV reset, manual. Then the rest of the items are here in accessibility. Okay, these are key. If you set these things up, you'll be good to go. If you have questions about different graphic settings, I'm not probably the best person to ask about that. I know it works for me in my system, but there are probably some other videos that you can check out on that. So once you've got everything set up the way you want, you click apply and save. It will apply those items and you're ready to go. And just to show you kind of what this looks like here, I'm gonna pull up a flight here for you. We're gonna take the T-35 at Key West, throw it on the runway. We're not gonna set up a departure. Let's leave flight conditions how they are, and let's go to fly.
Navy Key Tower, November 47 Tango Romeo 2 at runway 26 ready for departure, straight out departure.
November 47 Tango Romeo 2 altimeter 2 niter decimal niter 2 wind 276 entry. Departing straight out approved. Cleared for takeoff runway 26.
Cleared for takeoff runway 26 Tango Romeo 2.
Okay. So this is some of the pre-flight, the cinematics that we were talking about, which you just saw. So we're in the cockpit of the T-45. All right, I have my Tobii eye tracker on. Okay. Let's take a look on the outside. It's gonna get a little loud. Now, all right. I'm gonna mute that for a moment here, just so we can talk. Okay. It's very loud. So what you're looking at here is the external view. Now, most of the time when you come into Microsoft Flight Simulator, the external view is going to have the options laid out where the moment you get here to this section, you're going to see all of the instruments on the screen. And I think in the original version, maybe an early version, you would be able to go here and you could kind of toggle some of the stuff on and off. Whether you go to showcase, you know, if you want to do the drone buttons are a little bit different. Okay. But you'd have the instruments on the exterior. It's immersion breaking. I feel like I'm playing you know, Ace Combat or something of that nature at that point. Even if I'm in a Cessna 172, it just reminds me of it. I'm gonna pull up these. All about these. Right here. Under music experience, instrument heads up display, chase cam off. Instrument heads up display, cockpit cam off. If I turn this back on, let's do it to full so you can see how it looks. Here we are again. They're all back. Okay. This information is great if I was playing on an Xbox. Just to show you minimal. A little less, okay? Not quite as overbearing, but again, more than I care to look at. It's not for me, guys. It's just not for me. Okay? So I'm going to leave this off. Okay? Now, some of the other items in here, and this is a big part here, guys. There might be pieces in here that you're okay with and you might want to use. Auto mixture, aircraft lighting system, if you want them on its own. You don't want gyro drift. You don't want crash damage on, icing effect if you don't want that enabled, stress damage. If you like seeing your waypoints and your route, if you like having the taxi ribbon, now I won't lie. There have been a few times where I get lost and I might turn that on for a minute. Okay. Once I kind of get my feel upon where I'm at, I turn that off. Landing path, you'll see that on approach, you know, your 3-degree descent. It'll let you know if you're learning how to land. It's probably a good thing to keep on. Okay. If you've been around the block, I wouldn't do it. I turn all these notifications off. I don't care to see them. I don't care to know that, you know, if you leave your gear down or your flaps up or you're going to this, I'll deal with it. I'll deal with it in the cockpit. That's for me. Some of you guys might need it. It's on you. Okay. All these other items. Again, I've been around the simming world for a while. I don't need these things on. Auto rudder. I don't need assisted takeoff. I don't need an AI ATC. I don't need these things. If you want to fly around and you're looking for, and you're not just kind of leisurely flying around, you want to see where some awesome landmarks are, some things around the world that you may not have noticed from flying there before. I wouldn't use these on an online environment, but if you just kind of want to check out an area like a city, go ahead, turn them on. I think these are kind of cool. A little bit much for me, but they're kind of cool. But these user experience ones, this is where you might set some of these on. Okay. I never have the ATC UI panel open at start. There's no reason for it. I mainly fly online anyway. All right. I don't need to see the message log in the menu. the checklist. Now, I could see why you might want that if you're getting ready to start up the aircraft. I prefer to be able to enable it myself. I would never have the VFR map open or the nav log. I don't need that. AI piloting in cursor mode. I've never used cursor mode, so excuse me. Presumably so that if you were in cursor mode and you're in the aircraft, it would kind of autopilot things for you, so you don't crash. Again, not for me. We already spoke about these. Definitely with the G effect and G suit. Okay, these are a little bit different. Okay, G effect. So in the aspect of aviation, all right, if you look at the description, if disabled pilots can perform extreme maneuvers without simulating loss of consciousness. Now, I had this off for testing out the T-45, but I normally leave this on. Jet pilot, if you are normally flying larger, faster aircraft, I would leave this enabled to jet pilot. You're flying slow aircraft, you're, King Airs and maybe even the CRJ. You're not really going anything bigger than that. The civil aviation, a 737 even. You're not going to pull out of G's in a 737. I would be okay with that. You will notice there's a big difference on how it handles that, because a Cessna 172 pilot should not try, or I don't even know if you can pull 7 or 8 Gs. You would block out. It'd be kind of unreasonable for the aircraft. So I normally leave this on jet pilot for me. And the G suit is, I do leave that on. Okay. That's just typically because normally I'm flying aircraft that are faster. You can kind of switch this on and off as you want. If you're going to do flights that are going to be more civilian oriented, turn this off, maybe turn this to civil aviation. You don't have to leave these in a certain way. Okay. But these assistant options are probably the only options that I actually change and will enable from time to time. But that's really it. I would say between the general options here, say some of the accessibility, turning the tooltips off, it's just too much for me. Then some of the camera options here, all the auto stuff with the exception of flashlight mode, just having these things off would be a huge help for the way things look for you. But I will show you one quick thing about this. Now, let's look at, let's go over here, look at the sound. So you see here, how when I mouse over, the tooltips aren't active, right? I'm sorry, wrong selection here. You put this on legacy, the difference doesn't highlight, but you do see the mouse change, the cursor change. So they let you know that you are in the right place. This is a preference, but it's up to you. I just want to make sure that you understand the difference between legacy and lock. Lock will obviously highlight the item that you're trying to click, but if you pay attention anyway, you can kind of see what you're clicking. Okay. Not a big deal. So anyway, that's all it for today. Thanks for watching, and my name is Public Demon, and I'll see you next time.